Okay, this is tutorial number 17. We're going to just do a quick run through of of where we were in 16 up to this point. We just want to add a little reminder. At this point, you can either add or say no that you're not going to add the quality from the picker. What we want to do is check to see if the item already exists, and if it does, tell the user it already exists. Okay, it doesn't get added. How do we do that? Well, we have to loop through the array since it's a static array. If it were not a static array, if it were a dynamic array, like something in SQLite, if you were in a database, we would simply query the database to see if the item existed. If it did, we would we query the database to see if the item exists and fill an array. If the item exists, the array count will be at least 1, or should be only 1, I should say. And if the item doesn't exist, the count of the array will be 0. Well, it's sort of similar here. We're going to loop through the entire array. If it exists, we're going to assign a value of 1, and if it doesn't exist, we're going to assign a value of 0. Okay? When we get to SQLite, again, we'll show you how that's done, but it's more than simple enough to query the database for the item and then allow it to fill an array. If it exists, the array would be 1. There'd be 1 item there, and if it didn't, it'd be 0. Similar to the same thing here. We go to the button pressed event, which is where we want to go, and we want to set ourselves in right over here. Right over here. First thing we're going to do is, we're going to create an integer. We're going to call it y and assign it a value of 0. Warning is telling us it's not used. Then we're going to create a for loop. The for loop, the basis of this for loop is to loop through the array. Which array is it? Well, it's the quality array in the app delegate. Okay, we're going to assign integer for integer x equals 0. We're going to start from 0. And notice I don't have to call it an ns integer because, pardon me, because this type of an integer only exists in the for loop, and int is sufficient. Then we're going to say let x be less than, excuse me again, pardon me, less than, this cold really has me down, app delegate qual array count. Right? Pardon me again. Oh boy. And the increment is going to be plus plus, and the integer x. Okay. Oh boy. So what that's doing here, pardon me, is it says, look, I want a loop that starts me at 0, goes through the array, incrementing 1 at a time. So you would have essentially in this loop 0, 1, 2, 3. And because the count is 4, and it will be 4 since it's a static array, remember it's the count and the number of items in the quality array, which we see assigned, wait a minute, believe it's here. Right there. There's 4 items in the array. So it's got a count of 4. And therefore, again, let's go back to our... So we're from 0 to 3, and we're not going to go to 4. We want to be less than the count, and since there's 4 items in the count, the array count is 4, we're going to go from 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Alright. Now what is our statement going to be? We need an if-then statement here to check if the item selected item, if the selected item does not, we're going to say equal. Unless, however, use a logical does not. It's exclamation point equals does not equal Alright, and here's the thing here. It's an unsigned integer here, but I just want to finish this code here for a second and explain it. Okay. We're saying if the selected item here does not equal the object at index, and it's going to be, say, at 0, right, 0, 1, 2, and 3 in the quality array. So here, I would start off here when x is 0. Does the selected item equal the object at the 0 mark in this array? If it does, I want to do something. When I loop again, I'll have the selected item compared to the first object at 1. I'll compare the selected item again to 2 and to 3. So as I loop through this for statement here, I'm looking at each object here, increments 0, 1, 2, 3. In a sense, I'm looking at each object in the array and I'm comparing it to the selected item. So if it doesn't equal it, what I want to say is that y equals y plus 0. Why did I choose that? Basically, I know y is 0, but I can't say let y equal 0. If I say let y equal 0, it's already been assigned 0. What I say is take the y value and add 0 to it. So essentially y would equal y. I suppose I could make the statement y equals y, but rather for clarity it should be y equals 0. I'm going to put an else statement in here as well. We don't have to specify the condition here saying it equals, because that's the opposite of not equals. And in that case, you guessed it, y equals y plus 1. Okay, so here we have the conditions we need to find out what the value of y will be, right? So let's say one of the items in the qual array equals a selected item. You're going to get, let's say it's the last item too. So the first 3, y would be 0. When it comes to the last item, y will equal 1. Now how am I going to use that value to evaluate a condition for me? Well, if I want to add something, I need this portion of the alert view. I'm going to say if again, if y equals 0, right? And then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get this statement section out here, and this out here. I'm sorry, I need a logical equals, there we go. I'm then going to put down here, so if y equals 0, add it, meaning it's not there. The else statement comes in here. I'm going to add this code, I'm going to add it, it's been copied, okay, so that it made life easier. Else, and here's what we're going to do now. This has been copied, I just had it pasted in for you so it's a little easier on time here. Else, meaning if y were to equal 1, if we saw an item in the array, we create a title called you've entered, this is a carriage return, and the selected item, so you've entered this item. The message says that this quality already exists, right? And then of course the alert view will pop up with the title and the message. The cancel button will be okay. It'll be the only button we're going to use as a cancel button and no other button, and we'll show it. So what it'll basically do is it'll pop up telling you that this item exists, and you'll click OK, and it will not add anything. So this works well. Let's run it. Let's run it and give it a test. And it should work for any of the 4 items in the array. So easy, good, kind, or nice will flag it for being in there. Let's try fun, for example. Now, fun here we can add because it's not on the list. Good should give us, and it has, there it is. You've entered this quality. You've entered good. This quality already exists. Okay. Let's go to kind. Same thing there. Let's go to nice, right? Beautiful. Let's go to sweet. Alright, let's add sweet. It's not there, let's add it. So sweet's there in the array right now. Now watch what happens. I'm going to go to sweet here. Try to add it again. It's flagged it. So this is kind of, in a sense, semi-dynamic. As the array builds, we'll click OK. Let's add fun. Okay, and they're all in order as we see. We try to add fun again. Sorry, that exists. So it's semi-dynamic because the array exists in memory, but once you turn off the app and reboot the app, or actually say shut the app off and then turn it back on, you go back to the original 4 items. And that's how you do it. Let's do a review on this before we close out Tutorial 17. It's a quick one, but let's go through what we did. We went into the button pressed event right after we found the object that was selected, the selected item. We said create an integer called y, set it equal to 0. We want to loop through the array starting at 0 and enter x equals 0, and x should be less than the total count, meaning in this case 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, of course it will never hit 4, and we'll increment it each time, plus x. If the selected item does not equal the current object at the index that we're at in the qual array, then let y equal y plus 0. However, if it does equal it, set it equal to 1. So, if we have an object in that array, we're going to get a 1. If we don't have an object in that array, we're going to get a 0. It's the same thing we discussed with the SQLite. If we had an object in the array, right, if we queried the database, found an object, and it was in that array, we would get a count of 1. And if we didn't have anything there, we would get a count of 0. It's exactly how I do it for SQLite, but we have to loop through the array because it's a static array. Okay? And it does build itself up as we add things to it. So it starts off static, and then you add more and more items, but it's static in the sense that it in the code never changes. Okay. And then what we have to say is, look, once we know the value of the count of that array, or I should say the count of items that match in that array, we need to use that item. So if y equals 0, meaning we found no item in the array that matches, add it. Else, bring up this warning here, this alert view, an alternative alert view that says, hey, quality already exists, and you click OK, and it just goes out of this button pressed event without adding anything. So this prevents the user from adding more than one item. And you can take a variation on this and do different things with it. It's quite simple, it's quite easy, but it's basically what we're saying here is determine whether it exists before I add it, and if it does exist, don't add it, and if it doesn't exist, allow the user to add it. You could have done it. There are ways of doing it, but if you don't want to add an item, you want to check before you add it to see if it exists. So that is the final part of our tutorial for pickers at this moment. We're going to get into pickers later on at some point in time with other things. In tutorial number 18, I think I'd like to get into other types of maybe the flip view, or maybe we could get into the web view. The web view is nice. The web view is a way of, as it says, viewing a web page from an iPhone app, and it's basically just a different kind of an object. It's called a web view. A flip view is a way of navigating through your pages on your app. It might be interesting to see that as well. I haven't decided yet, but hopefully this code will get better and I won't have to have these sniffles here. And but in tutorial 18, I think for this point in time, let's look at the web view. The web view's fun, it's interesting, and I think you'll like it. Okay? Take care.